What's up, everybody? My name's Matt and I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles, and I'm here today to present a workshop on troubleshooting, library management, and show you about Beatgrids. And all these things are really designed to help you prepare and make sure that you can avoid any kind of technical issues that you may have with your computer, Serato software, and with the hardware that you use. So first off, I'm going to get right into the drivers for your devices, some basic troubleshooting with drivers. So drivers are little bits of information on your computer that allow your software and your hardware to communicate with your device that you're using, your mixer or your box or your controller, for example. So today I'm using the Pioneer DJM S9. I'm using the Rain 12 controllers. So I'm going to be using this for the whole workshop. So most importantly, when you first install Serato DJ Pro on your computer and you plug in your mixer, you're going to get prompted to install a driver on your computer. It'll pop up on your screen in the bottom right-hand corner, and it'll say install driver. And all you have to do is press yes, and if it all goes through as you'd expect, it'll disconnect right away. Now, recently, Apple have introduced an extra security preference that you're going to need to check. And when you install the driver, it's going to ask you to open security preferences. And so you'll want to do that. In your system preferences, you'll need to navigate to the security and privacy section. And when you have installed the driver for the first time, you'll get this prompt down here. You won't see it on my computer right now, but you'll get a prompt saying, do you allow this device to be installed on your computer? And you want to make sure that you say yes. And only when you say yes will the computer and the mixer or device start communicating with each other properly. If you say no or you skip that step, then you'll most likely be waiting for this to connect forever. Now that won't be ideal. You want to get moving right away. So make sure that you check that. And that's only going to be available to you if you're on OS High Sierra or OS Mojave for the Mac computer. PC users and users of the OS before that time, you won't have to worry about that. But that will probably be a continuous thing with Mac operating systems moving forward. So be sure to take note of that and hit us up and support if for whatever reason you don't get that. We have support members right now watching this video, so if you have a problem, feel free to comment in that section and we'll try and help you out with that. Or you can always go to our website and hit on the support tab and you'll be taken to the support portal. And anytime you have any Serato questions or any trouble, make sure you go there. That's where we have our support team working full-time, 7 days a week to help you guys make sure that everything's working and catch anything that's maybe not working right. So by all means, we want to hear from you. If you have any problems, make sure you reach out to us. So that's how to install a driver with a newer OS. And in this case, with this S9, I've already got the driver installed on my computer, so I won't need to worry about that. But say I updated my operating system and I need to reinstall the driver for whatever reason. Now, if you've already plugged it in, your computer's going to see it already, so it will think that you've already connected it, but you may need to update the driver. So you're probably wondering, where can I get that driver from? Well, you can go to the website for Pioneer, pioneerdj.com or Pioneer, and search for DJM S9 driver, and you can download it from there. But there's a faster way in case you're not connected to the internet and you're at a club and you do need to access the drivers in your computer. And fortunately with Serato DJ, we actually install a lot of drivers with the application. So if you go to your computer and you go to your applications folder, I'm just going to click out of there. You go to your applications folder, which should pop up in the Go menu here. Just go to Applications, and I'm already in it here. You can see I've got a bunch of different versions of Serato here. Now, if you right-click here, you can show package contents. Once you show package contents, you'll be taken to the contents folder. And then under the contents folder, you'll see a resources folder. And under that folder, you'll see a packages folder. So it's a couple steps. So let's just go back a bit. And we'll go back to here. We'll go right-click. And we'll go show package contents. And then under resources, and then under packages, you'll see all these drivers. So you can now install, you won't need to be connected to the internet to access this. It's already on your computer, as long as you've installed Serato DJ Pro. And you'll see all these different drivers that you can install. Now, some of them you won't be able to install. They'll be for older operating systems, and you'll get a prompt if you try and install it. It'll tell you that you cannot, so you won't be able to. But for the right installer, you'll probably just be able to look at the date and identify the one that you need to install. So here's a DJM S9 one here. I can double click on this and I can start installing it. There we go, and it'll ask to me to go through all these steps here, and it'll see if my computer can have it installed on there. Now, I don't need to install this driver, I've already got it on here, but I can continue and it'll reinstall the driver for me. And then once it's in your computer, if you go back to your applications folder, specifically with this Pioneer DJM S9, you actually get a Pioneer folder in here. Now, what's really good about this, the way Pioneer have done it, is that you can actually open up the setting utility. Now, you can start adjusting preferences in here that you'd like to change. For example, you can adjust the pad mode, you can adjust your fader start or your cut-in speed for your mixer, crossfader. You can also change the effects and all sorts of things in here. So it's a really good thing to explore if you want to kind of get the most out of your mixer. And the good thing about this is it's saved to your computer, so it won't affect somebody else's computer. This is all living on just your computer, so it's going to remember how you like things. And when you plug into this mixer, it's going to react how you want it to. When your friend plugs into it, it may act a little bit differently, but that's fine. This is how you want yours to be, so this is how it'll always remember. So that's a really good thing about the setting utility. Another one that you probably want to get familiar with if you're playing in clubs a lot is the 900 Nexus or 900 Nexus 2 setting utility. The 900 Nexus definitely is an important one to set up, especially if you're using timecode CDs or turntables with DVS control tone. You'll need to set up the mixer inputs for those sorts of things. So if you're going to use those, you can change the input for the DJM 900 Nexus. Now, I don't have one here, but if, for example, when I do need it, I've always got it set for phono on 1 and 4, so I can use turntables with that mixer. Maybe we'll cover that in a pro tip at a later point, but I just wanted to quickly touch on that. So that's drivers. The next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is firmware. So as I mentioned, drivers are made by the manufacturer of the hardware, not us. We don't make the drivers. Pioneer make the drivers, and that is so that this mixer can communicate with your computer and the software correctly. So you need to get that from Pioneer's website or the installer that's in the Serato DJ application. Now, there's another thing called firmware, which we also don't make. It's made by the manufacturer of the hardware that you're using. So in this case, with the DJM S9, when you turn it on, it tells you what firmware you're using. So if I turn this mixer off, and then I turn it back on again, if you look on the screen here, you'll see DJM S9 version 1.08, which is the most recent version of firmware. So I know as soon as I turn this mixer on, it's up to date, and I'm good to go. If it says something lower than that, you will have to update the firmware for this mixer. Now, updating firmware is a little bit more complicated than the driver. For example, you will need to download the firmware update from the website, and there's no way of getting that without having access to the internet. So if you are using a mixer at the same venue, or you own this mixer, then you want to make sure that you update this at some point before you start using it live. Now, if you want to update the firmware, there's certain procedures that you may have to take. You need to connect it to your computer via the USB port, and then you also need to turn it on and power it up a certain way. So for this mixer in particular, I have to press the back button and the left parameter button, and then turn it on, and then it's ready to receive the firmware update. I don't need to do that right now, so I'm good. But that's the procedure for this particular piece of hardware, and it's different for every different piece of hardware that you use, whether it's a controller, whether it's a mixer, whether it's a box, whatever. So you need to be very careful about how you know how to do that, and to do it probably not before you're about to start DJing. But if you have to, definitely check, so at least you know what you're getting yourself into before you start playing. Firmware, yeah, it's a little bit more difficult, but again, it's usually not as terrible if you don't have it up to date as a driver, for example. Now, another thing that you really need to make sure that you're up to date on is either understanding what OS you're using and what driver you need for that OS. So OS is the operating system, that's what it stands for, and that is the operating system of your computer. So that's something that you have to control and that you have full control over. To find out the operating system that you're using, you just click on the little apple here on your screen, and then you can click on About This Mac, and it'll tell you what OS you're using. I'm using Mojave, and it's working perfectly for me, and I've got all the right drivers, and so I have no problems with it. Now, if you're using Mojave and say you updated from something like Yosemite, as I mentioned earlier, you may have older drivers that you need to update to work with Mojave. So it's very important that you understand that you've got the right drivers for the right operating system. If you don't, that's when problems can happen, and we don't want that. Luckily, I know that I've got all the right drivers and I know how to get it up to speed, so make sure that if you're using Mojave, that you're using the right mixer that will work with that, with the right driver and the right firmware, and you won't have any problems. So if you're using an older OS, that's totally fine. You don't have to use the latest OS. I recommend using Mojave, but if you want to continue using an older piece of hardware that you've bought from a long time ago, you can use an older piece of hardware with the right drivers and the right operating system and the right version of Serato DJ. If you have the right version of all those things, you won't have any problems. Make sure that you've optimized your computer properly and you'll be fine. So real quickly on that, if you ever need to get a system report to us, you can also do that in the About This Mac section. You can find out a lot of things about your computer. It can tell you what operating system you are on, how much storage you've got available, and all sorts of other important things like from the system report, things about like what graphics card you've got, what sort of RAM you've got available, all sorts of really important things, what sort of drivers you've got installed on your computer. So you can actually save this by just pressing File and pressing Save, and you can save that to wherever you want, to your desktop. You can call it whatever you want. So I'm going to call it Matt's MacBook Pro, save it, and then it's going to create that system report, save it on your desktop. And if you have any problems and you want to get in touch with us and tell us what your problems are, if we're going to ask for that, that's how you get it, and you can send it off to us, and it'll give us the most detail about your computer that will be able to help you the fastest. So it's a great idea to learn how to do that and be able to send it off to a support. Cool, so that's about it for Troubleshooting 101. That's definitely the top 3 things that you need to do. Just a quick recap. Make sure you got the right drivers for your hardware, make sure your firmware is up to date on the hardware, and make sure you're using the right operating system and the right version of Serato DJ, and you should be good. So what I'm going to get into next is Beatgrids. So Beatgrids in Serato DJ are only visible if you have sync active. And you'll be able to tell that if you go to your setup menu or the little cog here on the right. You can tell if you've got sync off, you won't see any Beatgrids at all. You'll just see the track and the waveform, and that's it. And then you'll see the BPM. But if you have sync on, simple sync or smart sync on, and you have snap to Beatgrid on, you will see Beatgrids. So if you have Beatgrids off, everything is being determined by this number here. This is the BPM, which is at 136, or half of that in this case, which I would like to change. I'm just going to quickly change that. So to change that, all I have to do is double click and press Alt and the down arrow and enter, and it's going to half that tempo. So I want it at 68 BPM, which is what I know the song to be at. Now if I turn on Snap to Beatgrid, you'll start seeing the Beatgrid throughout my song. And you'll see it starting with the number 1 and a red line. Now that number 1 signifies the downbeat, or the first beat of the track. Now Serato doesn't get this right all the time. If your song starts with a noise of any sort, Serato is often going to think that that's where the beginning of the song starts, not necessarily on the first kick. So sometimes you need to move this grid around. But this is where it thinks the downbeat is, and then it has counts of 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats, 4 beats, 5 beats, and you can see the beginning of the 5th beat is signified by a slightly lighter white line. So that means that's 4 beats to a bar, and that's exactly how our Beatgrids work. So if you're playing songs in a different time signature, this probably won't work, but I'd say the majority of the music you're playing, if you're playing popular music, is going to be 4/4 and a BPM range. So this will work for the majority of your songs, unless of course you're playing some different time signatures. Now, you don't have to have a beat grid on every song. You can just clear it if you don't want it. So to do that, you can just press Edit Grid here, and you can just press the Delete button or Clear, and it'll clear your beat grid. Now you've got no beat grid on that song. But if you do want a beat grid, when you analyze your song, it's going to apply the beat grid to the song relative to the BPM value. So now that my song is analyzing, it's done. When I pull it up here, you'll see there is my beat grid, and it says it's 136. Again, I don't want it to be like that, so I'm going to half it, double click, Alt and down. Yes, and you can also choose your range here. in this little cog next to the Analyze Files where it says Set Beatgrid or BPM. Make sure you've got that. If you don't have that enabled, you won't also see Beatgrids. And then you can choose your BPM range. Now I have it turned to none. That's just how I like it. But you can change it however you'd like it if you usually find yourself playing at a certain BPM range. So the first thing you'll notice about this song, I'm going to plug in the hardware right now, and I'm going to get you some audio so you can hear what it sounds like. Alright, now I'm connected. Select the deck. Now if I bring it to where the Beatgrid thinks it's going to start, it's right here. And it's just got some raindrops. And right there, that's where I want the beat to start. So you can see what's happened here is that Serato thought that the raindrop sound, that's where it thought the beginning of the song was. So now you can see I've got my first downbeat set with a cue point, which is the first cue point. Now that's where I want the beat grid to start. So all I have to do is edit the grid, and that's done by pressing Edit Grid or Alt and Spacebar. And then what I could do is I could either shift that whole grid across, or I could delete it and set it again. Now the fastest option for me is just to delete the grid and to set it again. So to set it again, I can just need to make sure that I've got this playhead right here. Now if I zoom in, you can see this white line as the playhead, and as the sound passes the playhead, that's how it plays. So you want to get that playhead right here as close to the first downbeat as you can, and then you want to press Set or X on your keyboard, and that will set the downbeat to the first beat. So you can see right here, and it's playing throughout the song. The divisions are all correct, lining up the snares and other transients. And if I skip to the other part of the song, it's all good there. Still good there. If I go all the way to the end, looks like the beat grid is complete throughout the whole song, and it's correct. So now all I need to do is save it or press Enter to save. And now that's correct throughout the rest of the song. So if we go back to the beginning, we're all good. So you can do that on any song that has set the grid just a little bit wrong. And if it needs a little bit more adjusting, you can start using the adjust controls. Now, I'm going to talk about that with a song that wasn't done in time, written to a grid. This song has no tempo changes at all throughout it. It's just written to a grid, so it's fine. It's 4/4 all the way through at the same current BPM all the way through the song. But I have another song that isn't quite the same. Now this one is a song that starts at 130 beats per minute, and that changes and it goes down to 110 beats per minute. Now I know this song pretty well. I've played it a lot, and I've actually set the grid on it correctly, so I'm just going to walk you through how I did that. So if I clear the grid on this song, and I do that by pressing Edit Grid and Delete a bunch of times. Now I play the song, you see it says the tempo is 110 beats per minute. And if you know the song too, you'll know that this is not 110 beats per minute. That tempo is in fact 130 beats per minute. So I need to change that part of the song. So the first thing I want to do is I want to edit that grid again, which is Alt and Spacebar. And the first thing I need to do is set a downbeat for this part of the song. So fortunately the song starts on the 1, so all I have to do is press Set, get the playhead close to the downbeat, press Set. Alright, so you can already see if I'm counting along that 2 is way off. So what I need to do is I need to make that 2 come a little bit closer. So I'm going to use the adjust buttons here. And you can use the arrows on your keyboard to do this as well. But I'm just going to use it here. I'm just going to adjust it in. And as I'm doing that, you can see the grid is contracting and getting closer together. Now it's gone to 132. Let's see how that sounds. 2, 3, not bad. 4, 5. Zoom in a bit more. Now you can see it sliding off a bit, so I need to adjust it a bit the other way. There we go. And you can see right there, it's another major change in the song, so I need to make sure that that's right on the one there. And it looks pretty good there for a while. Now let's skip ahead. Alright, and now there's a part of the song where it's going to change. And I've marked it here with this little cue point here. Alright, so this is where the start of a change starts to happen. So be careful and watch this grid, how it changes across from bar 49 onto the next 8 or so bars here. So you can see that it's slowing down, but this grid has stayed the same. So what we need to do is, and now it's got another major hit here, and it's totally different, and it's totally wrong. This has now gone to 110 beats per minute, and we need to change that. So I'm going to jump back to bar 49 where that change started to happen, and I'm going to set another warp marker. So I'm just going to press set here. And I'm going to set another one here by pressing X. And then another one here. As you can see, that's the beginning of the next bar. And another one there. And another one there. And another one there. And there. And that's the end of that transition. So this starts chilling out around about bar 57. And the grid is still off, so I'm going to need to stretch this out a bit more. If I count along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Yep, so I need to stretch that out a bit. There we go. And count along. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. And now it's looking pretty good. So it's gone to 110 beats per minute. It's pretty good. So now let's skip ahead and just see how this is looking up a bit further along in the song. Yep, all good. And let's go right to the end of the song. Okay, let's tighten it up a bit. Cool. And that looks like we're pretty much done here. If we go all the way to the end of the song, it's all good. So if I jump back to the beginning of the song, you notice this one here, it says 130 beats per minute. And now if I hit the change in the song, the transition, watch the tempo change here. 128, 123, 119, 117, 115, 112, 110. So that's all good. I'm done here. I can press save or enter. We'll save. And now the best part about this is if I need to set a loop or something, that's a perfect 4-beat loop. And now if I need to set a 4-beat loop at the change, it's perfect too. And I probably wouldn't want to do this, but even if I wanted to set a loop in the middle of a transition, this should be correct as well. Now if I wanted to use loop roll or anything, everything that I'm going to use, effects, loops, anything that's going to be related to a BPM is going to be correct because the beat grid is correct. So that's how you do a transition, beat grid for a transition track. It's definitely a little bit more advanced, and if you've done all that work and you want to save it, there's a way to lock it to the file so that you don't re-analyze it and ruin it. So really quickly, I'm going to show you how to do that too. You'll see in this crate I've already got a couple songs in here with little locks on them. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to press Command, and I'm going to click in this first column here, and now you see a little lock up here. So now if I try and edit that grid, it's not going to let me do that. You get a little notice down the bottom here, Beatgrid is locked, can't edit it. If I want to unlock it, I do the same thing. Press Command and then click the lock, and now it's unlocked. So those are some little tips that will help you get your Beatgrids set correctly and accurately, and will really help preparing with your library for your sets and getting everything working how you'd like it if you're playing a set with a transition track or any track that has a variance in tempo that's not locked to 1 BPM throughout the whole song. Now lastly, I'm going to talk to you today about library management. So one of the most important things to a DJ often is their library, their music library, the songs they have. This is the thing that kind of gives you your personality and make you give you a difference from other DJs. And how you maintain your library also says a lot about you. If you want to have an organized library, there's some really helpful tips here that will hopefully help you understand how Serato works with things like crates and managing your files. On a file, all the metadata is things like loops and cues, flips, track names, key information. All that stuff lives on an MP3 file as it's called metadata, and it lives in the ID3 tag. So what that means is that if I have an MP3 and I edit it and I put information on it, and then I put it onto an external hard drive and I give it to a friend, not that I would do that, but if I decided to share that file, all that information is going to come along with it. It's going to have the BPM information, the key information, all the cue points and all the loops, all saved to that MP3 and the metadata. So that's written to that file. It's got its own, setup basically. Now, if I used a WAV file or an AIFF file, it doesn't retain metadata the same way. So MP3s is what I recommend you use. 320 kbps is definitely the highest way encoding of an MP3 that you can have, and it's definitely going to sound good and better than a lower quality MP3 on a system. If you're really into high def audio and you want to use AIFF and WAV files, you probably will need to understand that the metadata doesn't come along with them. And that's just simply a limitation of the file format itself. It has nothing to do with anything that we can do. But in Serato, we have the Serato folder. So if you've ever been in your music folder and you've seen this folder, Serato_Serato, this is the Serato folder that you'll be looking at. So this folder has all of the information about your crates, how many songs you've got in your library, and how the crates are lined up. All this stuff is saved to this file, this folder. And it's very important to understand where that lives on your computer and how it works with the software so you can manage your files correctly. So if you're using a WAV or an AIFF file, all your metadata is actually stored in here in this metadata folder. Anything that cannot be stored onto an MP3 will be stored in that folder. Now, the best way to move your files around as well is through the Files panel in Serato. So if you have music on your desktop, or say you have a song on your desktop and you want to add it to your music library. So I'm going to take this song here and I'm going to load it to a DAC here, and I'm going to play it. And now I say I want to put it into a crate, put it into my workshop crate. Now, what happens if I decide that I don't want that on my desktop anymore? So I'm going to go back to Finder and I'm going to go to my desktop. And I'm going to move that file to a different folder. I'm going to put it into my music folder. So I'm going to drag it over here. And now, if I go to my music library and I try and load it up again, it's going to say, oh, I don't know where that file's gone. So where this file is now, as I know, is in my music folder. So I need to go back to my Files panel. I need to go into the music folder. I need to go look for it. And it's under alphabetical order here, so you'll see it here. And that's where it is. Now if I move it back to the desktop, and I'm going to press Move, you will see that I can now load the song again, and it's fine. But if I wanted to move that file in Serato, all I'd have to do is need to go to my desktop where it originally was, click on the file, and then drag it to my music folder within Serato. It gives me that option again, copy, move, or cancel. Now if I copy it, it's going to create a duplicate copy of it and put it in the music folder. If I press move, it's going to take it from the desktop and put it into the music folder. And if I press cancel, it's just going to cancel and I didn't do anything. But I'm going to move it right now. And so what happens is that it's moved it, and I can load it up again, and it's still going to be in my workshop crate. And let's go search for it here. And everything's going to be the same as it was, or I won't have to re-add it to my library again. So it's the best way to move your files around in your library is to do it through the Files panel. You can even do that to an external, like USB key or something. If you wanted to put songs that you wanted to play on a friend's computer, you can actually drag all your files from your library and drag them to a USB drive through the Files panel, and it will create a folder with all the information on it. It'll actually create a new Serato folder on the root directory of that USB key. All back to that folder again. You'll also find other interesting things in here, like the Subcrates folder. Now, the Subcrates folder is a very important one to also know, especially if you use crates in Serato. So some people use iTunes and maybe use playlists and don't use crates. But if you do use crates, this is actually where all your crate information lives, in the Serato folder under the Subcrates folder. So you'll see here all the different names of all my crates. And if I create a new crate, for example, and I decide I want to delete this, I want to add just this one song to it. Cool. And then for whatever reason, I'm going to call this demo. And if I delete this crate for whatever reason, press in Command and delete. Now, there is a way to get that crate back. It's not completely gone. If I quit my software and I go to my trash, I will find, hopefully at the top, that's where my crate has gone. So that's where it's got sent, and if I need to put that back into my library, I can. So let's just put that to my desktop, and then let's go back to that music folder and that Serato folder that I had opened before, and go to the Subcrates folder. Now I can just drag that crate back in here. Now when I open up the software, when my crates have finished loading, you should still find my demo crate has returned to the place that it was. There it is, with the song in it, just as I had it before I left and deleted it. So that's a good way to know about how to maintain your crates, how to maintain your files, how to move them around. And one last thing I'm going to quickly talk about is smart crates. So crates, as you may know, are just places where you can put a bunch of files and it will stay organized. If you want to use smart crates, these are a good way to organize files without having to add them. They will be added automatically by Serato. So the difference is obviously quite clear. One's a regular orange crate, and a smart crate is a blue crate with an S on it. So if I click that little icon there, it's going to pull up a bunch of rules here, and I can add a rule. Now if I add a rule, you get three little option menus here. I'm going to choose file name for the first one, and then it defaults to the second one here. It says contains, and I can add in what I want the file name to say. So for this crate, I want to create a crate that just has clean music on it. So I'm going to type file name contains clean and press save. Now you can see I've already got one, but I've created a new one here, and I can just name it clean. And everything in this crate, if I organize it by BPM, everything in this crate is a clean version. It's got clean in the title somewhere. It's clean. So you can see it's a clean cut, or it says clean on it. So that means everything in this folder now is automatically, that was already in my Serato library, is automatically put into this one smart crate that's called clean. That means everything in it has clean in it. This is very helpful if I'm playing for kids, or I'm playing in a public atmosphere where I can't play any swear words or anything that would be deemed offensive. This is a great way to have all my music cleaned up and in one crate. Say I'm playing on the radio. Now I've got a bunch of clean songs that I have, and I could have added them just as recently as 2 hours ago, and I didn't have to drag them to a crate. Smart Crates already brought those in automatically for me, so I trust that I can use anything in here that's clean. So that's a really helpful way to use smart crates. There's many other ways that you can use them, but that's just one tip that might help you with your with music, where you can use it for instrumentals or acapellas or dirty versions or anything like that. Or you can even do a genre like house or hip hop or R&B. So that's how I use smart crates, and I find them very helpful. Lastly, I want to talk a bit about recording. If you ever do recording, recording is a very important part of being a DJ, making mixtapes and so on and so forth. Now, the recording panel, as you know, pops up here, and you actually have an option of what you want to record, where you want it to record to, your gain, start recording, and the name of the recording that you're doing. Now, in that Serato folder again, if you've started a recording and for whatever reason you forgot to save it before you quit the software, that recording lives in a place called the recording temp folder. And that's really good and very helpful to have, because often you get, you've done your set and you don't think about, oh, I got to save that recording. So automatically it's recording to an area, and it's called the recording temp folder. Now, I've got nothing in my recording temp folder at the moment, but let's just say I start recording and I play a song. There we go. Here's my song. There we go. Now, I'm not going to record a whole set right now. I'm just going to stop the recording, and I'm just going to quit the software. Now, because I didn't save it, not all is lost. All I need to do is need to go to my Serato folder, and I need to go to this recording, which is in the music directory here again, as I was saying, and I need to go to the recording temp folder, and there I have my recording, Serato recording, and you can see it was recorded today, and that's what I just recorded. So I don't have to save it. It's definitely better to save it. You can name it whatever you want, and that can also be saved to wherever you want. But if you didn't, this is where you'll find it. It's the recording temp folder for you. All right. Well, that's about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed our workshop. We definitely want to be doing more of these. So please, the next time we do one, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe what you'd like to hear a bit more about. This is just a basic troubleshooting one I've done, but we're going to do more of them, and we'd love to know what you'd like to hear about the software, maybe some things that you don't understand about Serato. We'd love to help you with that. So please let us know. Type it in the comments, or reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram. Let us know what you'd like us to make the next video about, and we'll make sure to try and highlight whatever your questions and concerns are in the next video. Thanks for watching. My name is Matt. I hope to see you again soon.